You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma podcast. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode. Excited to share this episode with you today, but before we do, I've got to thank our sponsors. First of all, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. They've been a huge part of this podcast for the last few years. So the Oklahoma Hall of Fame have been sharing Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com. And for daily updates, go to oklahomahof on Instagram and give them a follow. Our other sponsor today is Chickasaw Nation. Now, the Chickasaw Nation have sponsored pretty much everything in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and it's an honor to have their name and their brand supporting this podcast. A huge shout out to Governor Anatobi for supporting this podcast. It really means a lot. Our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. This episode is presented by Citizens Bank of Edmond. Citizens Bank of Edmond has been serving Edmond since 1901. They pride themselves on investing in the community and are here for all your personal and business banking needs. For more information, go to mycitizens.bank and follow them on Instagram at citizensedmond, as well as go bank there, because I bank there too. It's been a fantastic personal experience for me. I've had my podcast account there now, my podcast business account there now for 4 years now, I think, and it's been fantastic. So definitely worth your time. They're a great group of people, and they're always there to answer the phone when I forget my password, because I seem to forget it daily. So yeah, go to Citizens Edmond and check them out. It's been awesome. All right. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode. We are down in Oklahoma City today, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you our guest, Mr. Bradley Carter from Grounds for Compassion. You probably know Bradley's name because he's also a local politician. We just figured this out. You're in my district.
Yes, sir.
So, which I don't even know. I'm technically a resident, but I'm not a U.S. citizen yet, so I don't think I can vote yet. I don't think so. Anyway, well, I should probably figure that out.
I don't know that matters anymore nowadays.
No.
So, I mean, you might be able to.
I should probably figure that out. But pleasure to meet you in person. Thanks to Todd Nelson for connecting us.
Yes.
I always, the way the podcast generally works, and people ask, how do you find your guests? Well, most of the time it's through referrals, and Todd referred you to the podcast. So excited to dive into your story. He didn't mention a lot about you. He just said that you do really cool things with the coffee kind of empire. Not empire, probably wrong word for it, but the coffee business that you have, and just kind of the faith-based reasons behind it. Before we dive into that, though, set a little bit of context. Tell me a little bit about you, where you grew up, and what it is that you do.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Let's see, I was born in Florida to my father and mother who were in the Air Force. They grew up here in Bethany, Oklahoma. Moved us back when I was 5. And so I really grew up in Bethany through the formative years. And I attended Putnam City schools until high school, went to Bethany High School, which you're familiar with SNU being right beside us. Yeah. And it was a very small school, kind of the small town, even though we're surrounded by Oklahoma City. And after graduating high school, joined the military. I was in the Army for a few years and was a military police officer there. Came back home and really didn't have a direction for my life. Being lost, I just, you kind of do what you can do to earn money, to do whatever. So I was waiting tables, bartending, and that really more or less helped really kind of feed into the addiction that I was getting into with drugs and the party scene. And very fortunate, years later, ended up meeting my wife, which led to getting out of that lifestyle, and we started a family. And I'm fast forwarding through a lot of this.
No, this is good. I will definitely go back and ask a few deeper questions, but yeah, keep going.
But we were not Christians at the time, and it was after our second son was born that I really felt the urge to make sure that our kids grew up in church. And oddly enough, I remember looking at her very hypocritically and saying, I don't really think that you and I need to go, but I want our kids to know the truth so they can make their decisions when they're older. Right. And it really hit me that was probably one of the most hypocritical statements I could have ever made. You know where the truth is, but yet you don't care to go, so to speak. And my wife and I ended up just getting radically saved. And when I say radically saved, we had lived pretty radically in our own selfish, endeavors. And once we became saved, it was very clear that we needed to live our life just as radically and have the same fervor for Christ that we did for ourselves. And it wasn't too long after that I had gone on a mission trip to Haiti, which is really where God got a hold of me and focused on the fact that my wife and I would be going into ministry. I kind of laugh. I took her kicking and screaming, but we had discovered coffee at this time, which we both hated. We didn't drink, but that we felt called to put in a business in Haiti to help provide jobs and do whatever we could because the poverty level was so high. And coffee just really fit. And so we were there for a little over 18 months. And when I say I was spending a week to 2 weeks a month in Haiti and flying back and forth. At this point in time, we had an insurance business here in the States, and we're doing fairly well for ourselves. And we felt the Lord call us to quit that and really focus on ministry. And so I'd go there to make sure that they didn't forget who we were and do everything we could within the coffee business and industry and the farming, and then would come back home to try to figure out how to sell the coffee and who would be willing to buy it and how do we kind of fund this endeavor. And during this period of time, we grew our family from 2 kids to 5. Okay. And she came to me and said, I don't know that I can continue to be a single wife and keep doing this all on my own. I need help. And it was a really good time to transition to where I stayed here. We had donated the property we had in Haiti to a ministry that had come alongside of us and helped us through it all. And they have done amazing things. So shameless plug for Mission of Hope Haiti. They feed like 60,000 kids a day through their school lunch programs, and we're able to take our property that we donated to help grow their farming and the agronomy department that they have, and they do amazing things out there. So, and we got to focus on the coffee side here at the States, and the business started growing and the things that we could do. So we started putting our focus more in our community and what we could do to give back within that. And so we have a homeless outreach that we partner with a number of people and organizations here in the city. And we also partner within the recovery community to make sure that we're hiring people that are walking through that recovery and getting out of addiction to help them kind of on their journey to get back into life. A lot of times that also, fits in with the homeless community that we work with. So currently, as you and I are talking, we're about to have a pretty Arctic storm come through, and so we've been elbow deep in making sure we've got hotel rooms and food ready and different things prepared for people. And Oklahoma's great with all the seasons. I think we have made 2 seasons, hotter than it can be or colder than, and so we try to work in the catastrophic areas there, and it's just, I don't know, it's been kind of a blessing in what we do. And like you referenced, and a few years ago, I felt the call to step into politics, and I've really enjoyed it because I get to do on a larger scale what we were already doing through the coffee business. So it's not really about the politics, it's about the fact of being able to help the people within our community and being a blessing, and it's just opened so many more doors into what we can do to get people the resources they need.
Yeah. Tell me about, so you said mom and dad are in the Air Force. did that kind of help your decision to go into the military, or do you think after high school, I don't want to go to college, I want to go in the military? What was that conversation after high school with your family?
So that was kind of both, really. The college that I wanted to go to, that I was really geared up for, I was a baseball player.
Okay.
I did not get a scholarship for, and I was extremely headstrong. I mean, like, you want to talk about that teenage boy that's full of pride, full of himself. I mean, that was very much me. And so I was going to show everybody, since I didn't get the scholarship I wanted, instead of going to the schools that I could have, I decided to say no. And my dad was Air Force. My grandfather and uncle were Navy. So I was like, I need to go. I'm going to go Army, which would just, I can top them. And realized real quick into boot camp that this place was going to kick my butt, and I was only in for a few years, but I learned so much actually in that period of time that I still use to this day, and that I kind of navigate with. But it was a decision. Basically, I wasn't ready for college, but I didn't know what I was ready for. My father also worked for the Oklahoma Highway Patrol, so I figured I'll go be an MP in the Army. Okay. Do my time, come back, I can go to work with my dad. I can go do one of those things. I realized real quick, wasn't going to be a cop. I love our police. I love everything they do and our first responders. But it, at that point in time in my life, especially with the addictions that I had with drugs and whatnot, it was not, for me. I'm 44, and I tease with our chief of police now. I'm like, if I ever, get out of this and lose this position, whatever, I'm like, I'm going to be the oldest recruit you've ever had. I'll go be a cop with you. And I don't know that I could ever even run down the street right now, but it's something that still runs through my veins in that sense. But the Lord's got me serving in other capacities and other things, and so I can support those guys in doing what they do as well. So.
Tell me about that time that kind of addiction comes in then. Was that kind of around this time you're going into the military, you kind of coming out of high school, and we can talk, you don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, but if you do want to talk about it, I'd love to hear that story and how you go through that.
Oh, no, yeah, it's very much a part of my testimony. Okay. So, I partied in high school, much like most athletes did, here and there, nothing too drastic, but I'm trying to remember, it was probably a good year and a half into the military. I was involved into a car accident, and this was the late 90s. So, it was quite easy they just write prescription, and I got hooked on painkillers and muscle relaxers. And of course you chase that with alcohol, you're trying to numb the pain. And before you know it, it's something that you're really gripped in. And as a military police officer at the time, I was, again, dealing with hypocrisy. We had just had a huge bust in our area, which I wasn't a part of, but my roommate was, and had taken down a lot of the illegal drug activity that was going on in the Army. And I just really messed up one night, and on the pain pills and the alcohol, had an epiphany that I'm sitting here doing everything that we just arrested every one of these people for. And I'm pretty ashamed to admit it, but instead of trying to deal with it, I ran from it. And I had leave, came home for my birthday and see my family, did some stuff, and just hit a pit of kind of some depression and decided not going back. And I went AWOL. And let me tell you, that's some of the scariest things you can do. You talk about compounding it, making a problem worse. Right. You're constantly looking over your shoulder. And I was stationed at Fort Benning, Georgia. And so, you couldn't drive down the road if you saw a Georgia license plate, like, I'd pucker. I was just like thinking everybody's out for me. That didn't last too long before I went to turn myself in. It was like, I can't handle this. And the Army decided they didn't want me back. I was willing to go back and face the music, and they cut me loose. And it wasn't until I was actually running for political office and was about to be endorsed by a relatively well-known major here. And he and I had this talk. I had to let him know what was going on, and he apologized to me over lunch one day. He said, "Listen, you were nothing more than a financial decision. It would have cost us more to rehab you and get you back than it would to cut you loose." And I'm sitting there cutting my steak at lunch, and I just started crying in front of this man. And I'm like, for 20 something years, I sat here dealing with this guilt and this shame, and you're telling me I was nothing more than a financial decision. And he said, I'm sorry. Yeah. He's like, I can't tell you how many of those things I've had to sign. And it was like a weight also lifted off of me, though.
Right.
And ended up getting the endorsement from the guy anyway, but it was one of those things that I needed that healing. I needed to go through that. But it's been part of the story. I guess is the better way of putting it. Right. So, but that led into a deeper aspect of addiction with depression and drugs and alcohol when I was, going through the bars and the nightclubs, and never really big into, I guess, the illicit drugs. But I have, through Christ and the help of my wife, conquered that. She had a lot of drug issues at the time as well, and it's been amazing to watch those transformations come through our life, and now being able to speak to people about that and help them get through theirs. And then, of course, prayerfully and hopefully our kids don't ever follow those footsteps.
Yeah, and I mean, it all ties into your story, right? It all ties into who you are, and and we learn more from going through really hard times than we do from everything that's just easy and you cruise through life and nothing's ever difficult. Well, something's going to come across your desk at some point, right, or in front of you that tests you, and if you've never been tested before, then we learn from our failures and all the rest of it. Everyone listening knows all those quotes or whatever, but it's not easy, right? And you look through those times and you're just like, I mean, it could have been a lot worse, right? You might not even be here today.
Oh,
right.
There's been plenty of times that it's by the grace of God.
Yeah.
I should not be here. I'm even after, becoming a Christian and working through things and starting a coffee company, and I would hit different points. I can remember one time almost driving into a telephone pole. And as I feel my arm twitch the steering wheel, I get a picture of my youngest daughter, which we had just had. Yeah. And it was like I almost took me away from her, thinking that would be better. I was worth more dead than alive, in my opinion, at the time. And, you overcome a lot of things, like you said, through the trials, through the tribulations. And it is honestly only through the grace of God that I am still here to this day. And I try to make sure we relay that to people that we get to talk to and love on. And sometimes they catch that message, and sometimes, unfortunately, they do not.
So you get the Army lets you go. You come back to Oklahoma. Who do you go to? Who's the first person you go to at that point to say, if the Army's not going to help me, I need help? And were you dating your wife at the time too?
I was not. Okay. It was years later, about 6 years later, that I met my wife. Yeah. I went to Jim Beam, Crown Royal. Yeah. Those two I went to for my help in a lot of ways. And when I did meet my wife later, I was at the end of a rope of realizing, taking a look in the mirror, I'm drinking every single night. I'm going through all these things. I don't want to be a 50-year-old bartender. And no disrespect to those who are, that wasn't what I wanted to be. Yeah. My mom had continued to tell me, you're never going to find your wife in a bar. You got to come to church. I grew up in church, so I've always had the foundation. I just, had turned my back on it. Right. And I tease my mom to this day that as stubborn as I was, I had to find my wife in a bar just to prove her wrong. Right. And my wife had never grown up in church, so it was very foreign to her, and it was very uncomfortable for me. And we had kind of bounced around, but we finally landed on going to the church with my parents, which is the same church we're at to this day. We've been there for almost 17 years. Mm-hmm. It's home, and it's an amazing family that they have gotten behind a lot of what we do, not just with coffee, but with our homeless outreaches, and they support us in very many ways. Yeah. And they do a lot within our community. So it's been a great partnership in that as well. But God. Yeah. Simple question, I guess. Simple answer for the question is, I've got to turn to God. I've turned everywhere at that point except to him. And when I did finally turn to him, it was amazing how things did fall into place. But I had to die to self. I had to try all the other options first to realize that nothing's going to work. And a lot of people you talk to, when you try to turn to them, become more of a yes man. And you got to have somebody who's willing to challenge you. And God definitely challenges, the way we typically think today.
No, I agree. So fast forward a little bit then. You say, you go on a mission trip, you go to Haiti, and that's kind of where you discover the coffee side of things. How does that mission trip come about? Like, does someone, do you just think, yeah, why not? Let's go. And I mean, I
was actually at church and was asked if I would help lead the youth, part of the youth. And when I say lead, it was basically they needed another adult body there. I wasn't a leader by any means, or at least I didn't think so. And most of these high school kids had been on this trip before. So if anything, they're leading me, in a lot of ways. We go and you're getting to stay in a bunkhouse. There's no air conditioning. It's hotter than hell. Very little to no breeze. And it's not the best or ideal conditions, but I have a roof, I have a bed, I've got food they're cooking, they're doing stuff to take care of us. Most of the people you're trying to service in Haiti have absolutely none of this stuff, or they live in shanties. They put stuff together to create a hut. And this is prior to the earthquake that had taken Haiti out. So, I'm helping lead this trip. I'm going through, and I'm watching our leaders and even some of these kids. We're going into these villages and we're telling everybody, what's wrong and what they're doing wrong and how they can fix it and get better. And I was like, how the heck can we come here for a week, a year, and we're telling these people how to fix their lives? I just don't get it. So I kind of broke off from the group. I start walking around. I'm like, what do you think's wrong with your country? What do you think's wrong with this village? Like, what would you do to fix it? Yeah. And I want to say every man that I spoke with said, I just want a job. I want to be able to look across the table at my wife and know I provided for her. I want to be able to look at my kids and not feel shame. I want to do these things. Instead, I go stand in line with other people, to get my rations of chicken, rice, beans, whatever it may be that they're going to give us, hopefully get it through the next couple of days. I just want a job. And so that's when my wife and I were praying. Now, she's back home. She's with the kids. She's not going on this mission trip. Yeah. She set foot in Haiti one time with me, and that was it through the whole time we did this. Yeah. But I'm very careful not to say we were there because she was very much a part of the whole thing. Yeah. But I just started thinking that, okay, we got to figure out how do we provide jobs. So about 6 months after we had gotten back is when the earthquake hit Haiti. And my wife had a dream, and she saw me in Haiti, and I was moving concrete. She told me I was recycling concrete, and then we were constructing things and building things. I couldn't put two pieces of wood together with a nail at this point in time in my life, but I had a friend who was in the concrete construction business, so I'm trying to tap into him. See, my wife has this vision. I think I could do this and figure it out. I just need you to teach me. And it was about 6 months later before anybody could really get back into Haiti that wasn't a first responder or some kind of medical. And when we got in, I hit the ground running. I just, we're going to start recycling concrete. We're going to start construction. The government says that they've got some free land that they'll give a company if you'll start a company here. I'm trying to talk to anybody and everybody, but every piece of property I look at is, the negotiations started out at $1 million US, which I had no money for this. And I am 2 years clean at this point in time in my life. I'm trying to figure things out, and I am given chances to go talk in front of Parliament. I am speaking in front of these world leaders, so to speak, and I'm just sitting there trying to figure out, like, where in the world did this come from, God? How am I able to go talk to these people? I have a vision. I have no money, and I have no idea how in the world we're going to make this happen. And not only did they agree with wanting to help us out, But the ministry mission of Hope Haiti, they bought into this. And I tried to do this for 9 months and couldn't I couldn't even move a rock. And on this last trip at this 9-month mark, I'm at a hotel. I'm having breakfast with my father, who's come on this trip with me. And it's our last day in country. And I'm sitting there just really defeated. We haven't found anything yet. I can't do anything. And this man walks up to me, and he sees the hat that I've had made and this shirt that I'm wearing. I mean, like, I was official on paper. I hadn't moved anything and done anything, but I had the polos and the stuff. And he's like, Kingdom Concrete Construction and Recycling. What is that? So, like, great. Yeah. I get pumped. I start telling him all about it. He joins me for breakfast in the middle of the story, and then he goes, man, that is an amazing story. He goes, let me tell you why it won't work.
Great, thanks.
Well, that's kicking ways down. And he goes, when you're as poor of a country as Haiti is, and you need to make concrete, and you've got this much money, and you need this much, you just keep adding sand, and that's why everything crumbled. He's like, that's why they're recycling the rebar, and they're just throwing the concrete in the ocean, because it's going to dissolve in no time.
Okay.
He's like, but I've learned over my years that the reason that God gets you to one place isn't always the same reason you stay. He's like, do you mind if I pray with you? I was like, man, I don't know if there's anything else we can do, so let's go for it. And he prays just an amazing prayer. It just kind of brought me some peace. That afternoon, I go look at the last piece of property that we can do. It's 45 minutes outside of Port-au-Prince. It is 20 minutes up a mountain that has no road, which is never going to be conducive for construction or do anything. And I'm looking at a $1 million view. I've got the ocean in front of me. I've got more mountain behind me. And I have no clue why, but out of nowhere, I just said, I wonder if coffee could grow here.
Yeah.
Which is all that this government gentleman needed to hear, and he just starts going to town about coffee, speaking so fast that my translator can't keep up with him.
He just said, "You say coffee."
Yeah. And so he goes nuts. We start looking into it. Turns out that coffee was Haiti's #1 export back in its heyday. They used to produce, way back when, almost 50% of the world's coffee. And then in the early 90s, President Clinton enforced an embargo on Haiti and killed their trade, killed their country. I mean, Clinton really did a good job on destroying Haiti in a lot of ways, all in the name of trying to save it. And so this guy's telling me about it. Long story short, the government gives us 6,400 acres in this area, which is just outside of a town called Titayan, which means land of the dead. And it's where this was the dump for Haiti type thing. But we found a couple thousand plants growing wild. So in our first year, we were getting a harvest. Have a friend who has a coffee plantation in Hawaii. We shipped him some of the coffee to test it and tell us what to do. And he's like, Brad, this is the coffee I remember from Haiti. He's like, don't change a thing. And unfortunately, with where we are in the world right now, I don't bring any coffee in from Haiti.
Yeah.
But we adapted, and we use a broker to help us get in coffee. So we bring in coffee from 9 other countries. We blend everything ourselves. We only do Arabica coffee at this time. We only do current year crop.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that we produce the highest quality coffee. And when we started off, our deal was going to be, church coffee. We were teaching churches how to partner with us, because everybody basically used Folgers.
Yeah.
So it's like, our tagline became, church coffee doesn't have to suck. And so we got a lot of churches to switch to us, and then business leaders in the church started realizing that their coffee at their office was worse than this. And so then it just kind of grew into executive coffee service. And then we started, we opened a coffee shop, and so we started roasting for ourselves in other coffee shops. And before you knew it, we're roasting now for businesses, churches, coffee shops. We have, online sales. People can walk into our roastery and try what we've been roasting that day, buy retail. And all while doing this, they're helping partner with us and the community, and helping homelessness and helping combat recovery and kind of going that route. And so it's been a really long story. We've been doing this now 13 years. It's been a little tough here and there, but to see some of the stories and the lives that you get to touch and affect change with, and it's amazing. I've got a young lady who works for me. Her name is Sarah, and she's been clean 6 years now. Actually grew up with my wife. Has been there. I mean, they were best friends forever. We lost track of her for a while when she was in the pit of her addictions, and she has been one of the best, not just employees but friends, I could ever imagine having for my family or for our business. And just to hear her speak of what she thinks that our business has done for her and her family. She has a beautiful young daughter, has had to go through a number of different things in her life, and ups and downs with her husband, ex-husband, but is now looking to become her husband again, and just the being able to salvage that is probably a huge testimony in so many ways. And just the countless stories of people that have come alongside of us, and we don't believe people will work for us for the rest of their lives. We're a launching pad is the way we like to look at it. Yeah. Sarah may be a lifer. She may stick with me, which I'd be very happy if she did. But we have people that come in, that get everything under their feet, and our goal is to be a blessing coming and going for them. So
yeah, talk a little bit about kind of like, you said you've been doing this 13 years. Talk a little bit about kind of just like, it's sustainable. Talk a little bit about like the business side of things, like, and you mentioned earlier you had the insurance business at the time as well that was pretty successful. So talk a little bit about like, it's great to have this idea, it's great to have this vision and be able to donate and kind of be this launching pad. But also, you've got to have an idea of how to run a business too, right? So tell me like where that education comes from and who around you has been good to help you with that side too.
Trial and error, I would say, in a lot of ways there. I actually came from a relatively poor family. I guess we probably would have been considered the lower middle class or poor middle class. We did not, business has never been in my family in that regard. I didn't go to college for it, so a lot of it had to be trial and error. Now, the simple part of it is, you have bills, you got to pay those bills. If they don't, they come knocking on doors, and, there's things that have to be done. You've got to pay yourself, you've got to be able to eat. And then so you've got to equate into the margin into what you need to do. When we first started off and we were opening a coffee shop, I had no idea. I had worked in restaurants and bars. I've done this, so I understand the management side of things, but I didn't understand the ownership side. And so, I drove to like a Starbucks. I drove to another coffee shop in town. Whatever. I looked at their menus. I looked at their prices, and I'm like, all right, I can do this. This is what my price is going to be. I'm going to, I'll do 10 cents less, or I'll do 10 cents more. I'm going to try to kind of find those margins, and then you realize that the reason some of these guys can do the prices they do is because they have such a large buying power. It doesn't work for you. Yeah. You've got to figure out what your cost is and so for the first couple of years, I think we gave away more than we actually made or did, and it's when you've got 5 children, it's a motivating factor to make sure, that you can still provide and do things. And I didn't feel like I did it well. Yeah. And, we're 13 years in, and there's sometimes I still question myself on, what we're doing well, what we're not, and how we're going about it. I feel very proud that we survived 2020, 2021, but it's still a shot in the dark sometimes on how that goes. You got to navigate it. But, I've gone in and asked different, men in our church or in my small group who have successful businesses and who own businesses, like, I need a mentor. I need someone to come alongside me. And I feel very honored that I've had a couple of people lately come up to me and asking for me to be a mentor, and so you pay it back. Mm-hmm. And, not everybody, you're not born with knowing how to do any of this stuff. And I will tell you, most of my mentors and people that I've talked to through this have built it, lost it, and built it again. And it kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier. You learn more through the pain and the trials than you do the successes. Yeah. And so I don't know too many people who have succeeded and never failed. So that's the roller coaster of it in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Well, I think the great thing about it, right, is that you have a great coffee, you have a great product, and you have a great mission, right? And so by having two of those, you're going to get a lot of support, from, like I said, from church to start, and then because of the the business leaders that are at the church, you're going to have stuff come in as well, and then it just kind of compounds. And as long as you can focus on those two and the successes of that, then everything kind of falls in place, or should fall in place. What was, when you came back and you think, like, I'm gonna do this coffee thing, has the mission always been the same, or has it changed over time?
It's changed.
Okay.
So, originally our mission was Haiti and providing jobs and being able to do so in that country. Mm-hmm. When we came back, or I came back and stayed, the mission of providing jobs wasn't something I wanted to get away from. And at that point in time when we were doing this, it wasn't like our unemployment rate in Oklahoma City was sky high. But I've always wanted to be a provider and help people and do those things. And what we learned was that we needed to adapt it to our community. And so the needs and I guess just the needs of what you would see in Haiti aren't the same needs here.
Yeah.
Granted, now fast forward to 2024, and we've got a lot of poverty, we've got a lot of different homelessness and different things that are going on. But at the same time, we also are right now boasting some of the lowest unemployment rates in the country here in Oklahoma City. So it's a weird dichotomy that we've got to kind of navigate. I'm very much about giving a hand up and not a handout. Mm-hmm. I understand that you may be in a position or a place where you're needing that hand up, but if you're not willing to help yourself and not willing to go through things, then we're going to come to a certain point where that's going to need to be addressed, or unfortunately that may be a point where we have to part ways.
Yeah.
So we've continued to allow it to be adaptable. We have our foundation, we have the things that we do, but right now it's trying to be that blessing.
Yeah.
Meet people where they are and then kind of help them get out of it.
Yeah. How do, when people kind of come to you and say, hey, I see your cup, it's got grounds for compassion, what is that? Like, what's kind of like the 30-second elevator pitch you tell people?
Oh gosh. Hopefully it's going to be a quality cup of coffee, but in that aspect of it, that depending on where you were and what you paid for that cup of coffee, a portion of that gives back into our community, and you're going to see it down the road.
Yeah.
I still remember the first day I'm driving down the road and I look over and I saw somebody have a coffee cup in their car with our sleeve on it, and just you're grinning from ear to ear at that point in time, because now that people are buying into your mission and what you're doing. Unfortunately, they don't always get to see what their dollar does. My wife and I very much subscribe to the aspect of you do your work unto the Lord, not unto man, and so we don't really advertise a whole lot about what we do. When we're fortunate enough to have invitations to sit in shows like this and to do things like this, then we'll talk about it all day long, as long as God gets that glory. But really and truly, whenever they buy that bag of coffee or they're buying a cup of coffee somewhere where we are the roaster for that company, ultimately they're giving back into this community. They're doing something to help people. And it's a blessing that they want to support us, but I really hope that they would understand how much of a blessing they really are to people, and they may have never ever met these people.
Yeah. And that goes back to just the product speaking for itself, right? If they have no idea what the mission is, the product is amazing, and that's why they keep buying it. And then even though you're roasting for other coffee shops and businesses, is that all kind of white label stuff as well? So it's not, like I said, no one knows that it's grounds for compassion, but you're roasting for local coffee shop. People think, oh, that's their coffee, but it's not, right? You might be white labeling it.
We do. Yeah. We white label.
Yeah.
And we've been fortunate enough that we have a number of local shops that love to represent us and partner with us.
Yeah.
But we have coffee shops in Texas, we have coffee shops in Tennessee, and Florida, that sometimes you'll see us on the bags, but it's in the coffee shop of with their own name.
Yeah.
And that's really a big part of my passion as well, though, is helping people realize their dream. So we do coffee consulting.
Yeah.
We do, training. We help people open up their coffee shops and let them run their dream. We just get to provide the vehicle that helps them get there.
Yeah. So you thought you'd never be doing that, right?
Never. No. I had a conversation with my younger brother just a few days ago, and I'm like, why in the world, are people calling me, asking me for help or advice on some of this stuff? I just don't get it. I can probably tell you more ways of not to do something than I can tell you how to do it. So
yeah, this is how not to do it. This is what not to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, stay away from these things. Tell me a little bit about the homeless outreach and kind of how that has been, in Oklahoma City, and how that's kind of evolved over the kind of years as well. And like you mentioned, we have a huge storm coming in, which by the time this goes out, we'll probably be in the middle of it. So I hope everyone listening is warm and safe and has power. But yeah, tell me a little bit about the homeless outreach that you guys are involved in.
So my wife was homeless shortly before we had met for a number of months. And if you go by homelessness and some of the definitions today, I was too. Just because of the couch surfing and not having a full-on address. Back then we called it, college. Yeah. But when we started having children, we wanted our kids to know kind of what we lived through, what we came through. We don't ever want them to go to that side. And so when they were very young, we would make, we were giving away coffee. Yeah. So we would make a couple 3-gallon batches of our coffee and make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And we'd just go to a place where we knew the camps were. We'd set up a table, have our logoed stuff kind of out there, and just start yelling, is anybody hungry? Would you like something to drink? And we didn't know where to go or who to partner with, so we did it ourselves. And we wanted our kids to be a part of it so they could really see this other side. We were very fortunate to have a home. We've got, a couple different cars. We were able to still afford to do these things. And I don't want my children ever growing up thinking that's the only way to life, because there's so many different factors. And over the time, it really has just kind of morphed into people wanting to come alongside and join us. They come out with us in the freezing cold weather. They'll donate food, blankets, whatever it may be, and you start meeting other people who didn't know that there was different homeless resources, downtown. They just go out because they have a heart to love on people and they don't want to see anybody sick. And it's amazing over the years. My wife will pull into a parking lot and just find somebody. I get a call now, and I don't even. It is what it is. We got to go get a hotel room. We need to get somebody some food. This person had all their identification stolen, so I'm going to take them over to the Social Security office. I'm going to take them down here. We're going to get this stuff set up, and we homeschool our children. And so she's got the time. She's probably spread thin more than I am in a lot of ways, but she makes the time to make that happen, and. She really is the engine for it in so many ways, because that was a part of her life that was very real to her and made a lasting impact. And so she can help pull anybody out of it, she's going to. And through our business and what we've done now through even with politics is opening so many more doors for us to be able to do it on a bigger scale and help people. And that's what we love, is because we find the resources, things that I wasn't aware of with whether it's the Homeless Alliance or it's City Care or it's the Oklahoma City Housing Authority. I've been fortunate enough to be in the position that I'm in, that I can make a phone call and those people answer the phone now. We can find someone a bed. We can find someone a house or an apartment, and just to see the way the city is starting to recognize homelessness and what they need to do to help out has been really miraculous, I think. Yeah. So, and like this current storm that's coming up, we have negative temperatures that are coming up in the next couple of days, and we've got to get everybody kind of prepped and ready. And whether we've got some people who are willing to go into motels or hotels, and some people, because they have pets, they're not willing to leave. And that's their family. We get it. So we have to get them some sub-zero sleeping bags, try to get them something that they can navigate through the upcoming weather. It's right now at our office, we've got the SNU track team, I think it is, that is making sandwiches and stuffing baggies full of just little bitty shampoos and toiletries for the people we're putting in the motels. So that's been actually a really good partnership. You know, sorry you and I didn't get to know each other when you were there doing that, but we that's just kind of how things have morphed into that. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, no, you did, definitely.
Okay.
Well, and a lot of it's like, you know, for people listening, and for myself too, a lot of it's like education, right? You know, we just don't know. And like you said, you know, before you guys were just going out and doing it on your own before you kind of got into politics, and you kind of learned the ways around it and who, you know, because that's one thing too. It's like, who are the best people to, you know, if someone doesn't have the time or if they just don't have the physical ability to go out and hand out and help stuff and help physically, like, who do they donate to? Like, who's the right people to? Because there's so many out there, like, you know, and it's very hard to figure out, you know, like you mentioned earlier, to figure out where your dollars are going. So, you know, and like I said, when you get into politics, you kind of realize, you know, oh, these are the right people to talk to. These are the ones who are actually really making the impact, and, you know, I can help out. Or it's, you know, it just, like you said, opens up a lot of doors.
Well, I mean, for us, we tell people, I mean, if they don't want to donate to us specifically or to somebody else, I completely get it. You don't always can trust. Well, we need 10 rooms for 6 nights. Call this motel and pay it.
Right.
You know, go that route, do it that way. And it's amazing the people that do show up. I mean, and you start building trust after that time, so people will start donating or doing whatnot. And we have a nonprofit that runs concurrent with our for-profit, and that can get kind of sticky to run together, so you have to be very careful. But we make sure that everything goes into that regard and what we can do. And in fact, I mean, we'll be out this weekend. My church loans us their people mover, and we go in. Man, let me tell you, some of the tent cities and or like homeless camps, they have some elaborate camps. Last year, I was down underground in a bunker that someone had dug out and created literally an apartment underneath it. Scared the junk out of me.
I'm sure it did.
Oh, but I mean, I came across a CPR dummy. I thought it was the person that was dead. It scared me half to death. But I mean, just some of the places that you go and some of the things you do, and you get to pull these people out, is eye-opening. You know, like, you just wouldn't even consider some of the ways people will live and survive. And we've been out of that for so long that we've become very comfortable and accustomed to our life. You know, you forget as well. So it's crazy.
I assume the plan is to just do this as long as you can do it, right? It doesn't say, you know, just by listening to you speak, and this is something that you really have a passion for. You know, just where do you see it going? I guess where would be the next question. Like, logically, like, you said you're 44 years old now. Where do you see, like, and I'm sure it might evolve over time too. Like, if there's another need, you know, now it's homelessness, maybe it's something else. Like, where do you see the future of, you know, Grounds for Compassion going?
I'll take it as far as God calls me to take it.
Okay.
That'll be your short answer. My wife and I made a commitment to each other and to God years ago that, okay, Lord, the answer is yes. What's the question? And so if we feel like God's directed us a certain way, regardless if we know how we're going to get there, all right, we'll do it. And it's very difficult for us to see someone in need and not do what we can to help out. You know, so again, that's where the aspect of the politics has just opened up doors to be able to do it in a better way. I hope. We don't really like to subscribe to party lines and to different things, and that's one of the reasons we love city councils, because it's not supposed to be that way.
Real impact.
It's supposed to be about your community. It doesn't matter what side of an aisle you're on or whatever. These are human beings. These are real needs, real situations. You know, let's focus on that. And if we do that, I think everybody wins. You don't have to have these different ideals that can get in the way. Let's just focus on being a blessing to the community. And, you know, so far it seems like, you know, it's really working, and focusing on that is what we're going to do. But I will tell you that my wife is the reason that we've really focused on the homeless thing. I have fallen absolutely in love with it, more so because of her. I doubt we ever get out of it And everything I read biblically, I don't ever see the word retirement. So I don't know that that's anything other than American really kind of, philosophy.
Right.
And don't get me wrong. I mean, retirement sounds great at some point.
Yeah.
But our job is to make disciples and to love on people. And unless you're willing to meet their needs and meet them where they're at, very rarely can they hear the message of Christ. So my goal will be until I go the way of my ancestors, I'm going to keep doing this.
Yeah. You mentioned you got 5 kids now. Kids involved, and what's that like having them around, and also just having them not just learn from giving back and seeing people's different and difficult situations, but also learning, entrepreneurship as well. What's that like?
It's been a challenge. I've got with 5, I have 5 teenagers, so they range from 13 to 19.
Wow.
We went from 2 to 5 in 18 months.
Yeah.
Our last 2 were 12 months apart.
Okay.
But then 6 months later, we adopted who became our oldest.
Okay.
She was my niece first.
Okay.
Her mom and dad died from overdoses.
Oh my gosh.
4 months apart.
Wow.
And so we were her aunt and uncle, and then became mom and dad. She was an almost only child in her situation, and then became the oldest of 5 overnight. And so we've got 5 very different kids in a lot of ways. Some you can tell have that business entrepreneurial mindset. My youngest boy, who's 14, I think he's already started 2 or 3 companies. Yeah. And he's employed his brothers and sisters doing it. And when I say that, I'm talking like he started the backyard dog poop cleanup business before it actually became a thing in the city. Yeah. Then he started cleaning out people's storm shelters, still does that one to this day. Yeah. And it pays for his extracurricular sports. It pays for the things he wants to do. He's got some really high profile clients, when I say it that way. I mean, because he has no problem getting down. Dad, one day I started thinking, what could I do that nobody likes doing? Yeah. And then I'm going to go do it.
That's also a recession-proof business,
right?
As well, right?
So,
cleaning is recession-proof business.
And then my youngest daughter is just like, she is always thinking about how can I make money? How can I do this? And my oldest son has got a clothing line business that he's really trying to kind of get kicked off. He loves designing things. But my oldest daughter, who came out of that life of addiction and pain as well, and all the traumas that she had gone through in those first 6 years, she's now taking, and she's headed to ORU, and she's wanting to become a childhood trauma counselor to help children who are navigating that. So my middle son's 15. He's this baseball player who of course has aspirations to not only go to college but pro. And so I mean all of them work for me except for my oldest son, who it's been great for our relationship that he doesn't. But he works at Chick-fil-A. He just got promoted to trainer there. He's doing great things. But they all have the heart to help. Yeah. And I would really, I think the credit goes to my wife. She has incorporated all of that into our homeschooling, into our lives of everything that we do. So when your 17-year-old son in public will walk up and give you a hug and tell you he loves you in front of all of his friends and everybody else, I feel like we must have done something right there. Yeah. I've got, and my 19-year-old daughter will do it. It's like they're not ashamed. They're not worried about it. You're gonna get me choked up even talking about it. I feel very honored and blessed to be their dad on that side of it. So.
Yeah. Brilliant. Bradley, it's been an absolute blast. I'm glad that Todd put us together. I'm glad we got to make this happen. And
absolutely.
I'm glad we could do it as soon as we did, because great timing on the storm coming in and hearing that story and everything that you guys are doing on that as well. How do people help out? What's kind of like the social medias, the websites for Grounds for Compassion, where people can come and try this amazing coffee?
So groundsforcompassion.com. Okay. Or G4C.coffee. Okay. Is our websites. Same on social medias. We do have an aspect people can donate to if they so choose. You can call the store and get that information. But we have just literally supporting us. We have a deal for people who want to just subscribe and have coffee delivered every month directly. Don't set it and forget it. It's called the Compassion Club. You get to be a part of that if you want. But we would really covet your prayers. People who would love to come alongside of us, pray with us, cover us in that sense as we continue to move forward. We want to make sure that we can continue doing this as we get older and grow. So
yeah, brilliant. Well,
I really appreciate you having me on here.
I will put the links and the address and everything in the description on the podcast down below, so people can go click that straight away and kind of see it as they're listening. But yeah, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Good luck this year in the politics side of things. I know it's going to be a busy year on that side as well as obviously for your business. So wish you all the best on that side. And for people listening, we'll catch you next episode.
Thank you.
Hope you guys enjoyed that great episode. Thank you so much for listening. As always, huge shout out to our sponsors, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, sharing Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at oklahomahof. Our other sponsor, the Chickasaw Nation, amazing sponsor. They do amazing things for the state, and they're always sponsoring something in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and without their support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. This episode is presented by Citizens Bank of Edmond. Citizens Bank of Edmond has been serving Edmond since 1901. They pride themselves on investing in the community and are here for all your personal and business banking needs. For more information, go to mycitizens.bank and follow them on Instagram at citizensedmond, as well as go bank there, because I bank there too. It's been a fantastic personal experience for me. I've had my podcast account there now, my podcast business account there now for 4 years now, I think, and it's been fantastic. So definitely worth your time. They're a great group of people, and they're always there to answer the phone when I forget my password, because I seem to forget it daily. So yeah, go to Citizens Edmond and check them out. It's been awesome.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.